Military analysts still debate why the compromised AH-64 Apache activated itself moments before Alina Bayer arrived. Its encrypted signals point to a buried secret. *A. Classified explosion ripped through the test range, and intercepted codes pointed straight at the crippled AH-64 Apache. No expert could revive. But when the commander summoned legendary veteran Alina Bayer, the aircraft reacted, because the truth was never meant to be found. The desert fog rolled in like a slow-moving threat, muffling distant fire and swallowing the steel skeletons of grounded aircraft. Floodlights flickered over Hangar 7, where the crippled AH-64 Apache sat motionless, its matte black frame humming with a faint, unnatural charge. For 72 hours, teams of elite technicians had tried to revive it. They swapped circuitry, recalibrated avionics, ran diagnostics through every known protocol. Nothing worked. Everyone agreed on one thing: experts couldn't fix the AH-64 Apache, and that meant something far worse than mechanical failure. Commander Rourke stood rigid in the cold draft, boots scraping against metal flooring as he stared at the idle aircraft. He'd led air operations across 3 continents. He knew the difference between a broken bird and one refusing to wake. Radios cracked with static across the hangar. The scent of oil thickened the air. Every sound felt wrong. Every flicker of light felt like a warning. A young warrant officer approached quietly, voice low. "Sir, we have one option left, Alina Bayer." Rourke's jaw tensed. "She's retired." "Retired? Yes. Obsolete? Never." Her name carried weight across the aviation corps. Alina Bayer, the mechanic who had rebuilt an Apache during a monsoon while insurgent fire rained across the sky. She wasn't a myth. She wasn't a ghost. She was the operator you called when the impossible was the only mission left. A rumble outside signaled her arrival. A weathered SUV rolled in through the fog, headlights cutting through the gloom. The door opened slowly. Alina stepped out with the calm of someone who'd outlived wars most soldiers never heard about. Silver hair braided tight, gloves tucked into her belt, boots coated in dust. She walked like she'd been here before, because she had, in different wars, different continents, different lives. The technicians fell dead silent. Alina approached the AH-64, her eyes narrowing as she circled the frame. She didn't touch it at first. She listened, wind sliding across fuselage, metal creaking softly, like breath being held. Finally, she placed her palm on the cold body of the aircraft. Something inside the cockpit flickered. A microhook of dread swept the hangar. Rourke stepped forward. "We've tried everything. She's dead." Elena's voice was gravel and ice. Machines don't die without cause. And this one, her hand slid across a panel. This one is afraid. The technicians exchanged uneasy glances. Fog seeped under the hangar door. Radios hissed. Metal groaned. "What makes you think this isn't a standard malfunction?" Rourke asked. Alina didn't look up, because experts couldn't fix the AH-64 Apache. But someone fixed it before you ever saw it. She tapped 2 fingers against the belly panel. This was tampered with. A jolt went through the room. The aircraft's auxiliary systems flickered alive for half a second, screens blinking. Sensors pulsing, then faded back into silence. A second microhook snapped the atmosphere. Rourke frowned. "You're suggesting sabotage?" "No." Alina crouched, flashlight beams sweeping over conduits and solder lines. "I'm suggesting precision sabotage, something hidden so deeply your entire team walked past it without realizing." The wind outside howled, like distant artillery. Alina removed a narrow panel with deliberate care. A thin foreign relay gleamed beneath the wiring, soldered with expertise beyond anything standard military engineers used. She exhaled slowly. "There. What is it?" Rourke demanded. "A signal bridge," she said. "This Apache wasn't meant to fly. It was meant to listen." The third microhook tightened the noose. "Listen to who?" the warrant officer whispered. Alina didn't answer immediately. She leaned closer, tracing the relay with gloved fingers. Whoever installed this wasn't careless. They wanted control, remote control, a silent override. Fog pressed against the hangar windows as if the night itself wanted in. Rourke stepped back, breath tightening. Alina, what happens if we power it fully? Her eyes sharpened. You won't like it. She climbed into the cockpit. Instruments glimmered faintly beneath her touch. A soft hum vibrated through the frame low, almost mournful. Then a sudden burst of static tore through the hangar radio. A distorted voice whispered through the channel. Stop. They're watching. Everyone froze. Elena's blood ran cold. She recognized the voice. It belonged to a pilot who was supposed to be dead. The cockpit lit up violently, screens, flashing encrypted patterns no one had ever logged in the system. Rourke shouted, Bayer, what did you trigger? Elena's voice dropped to a razor whisper. This Apache isn't malfunctioning. It's remembering. A final surge of electricity snapped through the fuselage, bright, violent, deliberate, and then the aircraft projected one final encrypted message across every screen. Betrayal began here. The hangar plunged into blackout. Asterisk want the truth behind experts couldn't fix the AH-64 Apache. Stay locked in because the deeper files get darker, and the next revelation exposes the first enemy inside the wire. Keep watching. The shadows aren't done speaking. Asterisk darkness swallowed Hangar 7 after the blackout. Only emergency strobes pulsed red across metal beams, casting long shadows that trembled like the heartbeat of a dying machine. The air smelled of burning wires and cold fuel. Soldiers raised rifles, unsure what they were aiming at. Radios hissed but carried no channel, no backup, no command. Alina Bayer remained frozen in the cockpit, illuminated only by the faint green glow of encrypted code scrolling across the Apache's dead screens. Rourke shouted her name, but she didn't respond. She was listening because the hum rising beneath the seat wasn't mechanical. It was a pulse, a memory, a recording buried deep. Alina. Rourke's boots hammered up the ladder. She finally turned her head. Don't touch the frame. Why? What did it trigger? Alina exhaled slowly. Something intentional. Something someone didn't want found. Her flashlight shook as she raised it toward a panel above the avionics bay. In the darkness, tiny indicator diodes blinked in a rhythm she recognized from only one Kaysan operation that had been classified and buried. A ghost code. A pilot's last broadcast. The last time she'd seen this pattern. A downed Apache had been found with no pilot and a flight recorder that played only static. When she tried decrypting the logs, she was reassigned the next morning. The case was never mentioned again. Microhook. The Apache wasn't simply malfunctioning. It was testifying. A tremor rattled the hangar. Not from the storm outside but from the Apache itself. Alina pressed 2 fingers to the metal console. The relay is awake, she whispered, and it's trying to communicate. How? Rourke growled. By forcing a system reboot pattern only inserted during sabotage investigations. A technician stumbled back. Sabotage. But experts couldn't fix the AH-64 Apache. That's because they weren't supposed to. Alina cut him off. This relay interferes whenever tampering is detected. It keeps mechanics looking in the wrong places. Wind pounded against the hangar doors. Boots echoed as soldiers formed a perimeter. Rourke leaned closer. What's the objective here, Bayer? Alina kept her eyes on the flickering screens. Someone wanted this helicopter grounded until the right person found the right message. And that's you. She gave him a cold, humorless smirk. Apparently. Another microhook pulsed in the air. The Apache wasn't warning them. They were already too late. Alina plugged a hardened decryptor into the main port. The screens lit with violent bursts of green and white, glitching like a heartbeat, failing and restarting. A voice, broken, distorted, forced itself through the speakers. Bayer, if you hear this, extraction compromised. They know the message cut out with a groan of metal and static, like something alive choking. Rourke's blood went cold. Who was that? Alina didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the code. She knew the voice. She also knew he'd been reported. Kia 12 months ago. Fog pushed into the hangar as the doors trembled again. Outside movement. Multiple figures. Too coordinated. Too quiet. Rourke touched his comm. Perimeter. Report. No response. The radios were jammed. Alina, he said slowly. We have company. The Apache screens flashed violently. A warning. A location. A countdown. The sabotage relay wasn't just sending a memory. It was sending a signal. Commander, she whispered. This helicopter just transmitted our coordinates. Rourke's eyes widened. To who? Before Alina could answer, the overhead lights snapped back on, flood bright, merciless, and in the reflection of the cockpit glass, she saw them, armed silhouettes entering the hangar from both sides, silent, disciplined, wearing no insignia. The Apache's rotors twitched. The relay blinked faster, asterisk. The intruders moved like ghosts, 6 of them. Maybe 8 armed with suppressed rifles and tactical gear that didn't match any known US unit. No insignia, no identification, no hesitation. They belonged to someone who operated outside the chain of command. Rourke whispered, these aren't deserters, they're cleaners. Elena's breath tightened. Cleaners meant one thing: erase the asset, erase the data, erase the witnesses. Fog surged inside as the doors fully slid open. Boots splashed through puddles on the hangar floor. One intruder raised a directional jammer, killing any remaining comms. Another swept a thermal scanner across the cockpit. Alina, Rourke said, we need cover. But the Apache responded before she could. Its main display lit up with a white warning screen. Override enabled. Protective protocol initiated. A deep, bass-like hum rippled through the airframe, something no grounded Apache should ever emit. The aircraft wasn't powering up to fly. It was powering up to defend. A microhook triggered. The AH-64 wasn't a victim. It was a witness fighting back. The nearest intruder took notice. He signaled with 2 fingers. 2 others advanced toward the cockpit. Alina slid down the ladder just as a suppressed round cracked past her ear, punching a smoking hole in the metal behind her. Rourke dragged her behind a toolbox cart. Why are they after a dead aircraft? He hissed. It's not dead. Alina tapped the decryptor still connected to the cockpit. And neither is the data Rowan buried. She didn't mean to say his name, but the moment it left her lips, Rourke froze. Rowan. Captain Rowan. He died in a crash. No, she whispered. He was silenced for discovering the relay. This relay. She pointed toward the glowing panel. And now they're here to bury everything he knew. Another microhook swung the tension higher. The Apache wasn't the target Lena Bayer was. Gunfire erupted, quiet thuds from ricochets sparking across steel beams. Soldiers from Rourke's security detail pushed forward, but the intruders moved with brutal efficiency, disabling them with precision shots. Alina darted toward the maintenance console, sliding across the floor as bullets shredded a toolbox behind her. She slammed her palm onto the secondary control panel. The Apache reacted instantly. Rotor locks disengaged. Sensors flared. A piercing alarm, one not part of standard military. Systems sliced through the hangar. The intruders faltered. The Apache wasn't activating weapons yet. It was warning Alina, directing her. She shouted, "It's feeding me coordinates." For what? For something inside the airframe. Her hands hovered over a panel she had never opened in her entire career. A compartment that doesn't exist in the manuals. Rourke fired 3 controlled bursts downrange. Then open it. Alina ripped off the panel. Inside was a secured black module, no markings, no serial number, shielded with radiation mesh. Her heart pounded. This wasn't sabotage. This was an intelligence device. One that wasn't supposed to be found. Boots thundered toward her. An intruder lunged, reaching for the module, but the Apache moved. A jolt of electrical charge surged through its fuselage, arcing into the intruder's hand. He collapsed, spasming silently. Rourke yelled, "Extract now." But she had already connected the decryptor. The module activated dot, and the cockpit screens filled with a single classified coordinate. Site Echo 1, location of initial sabotage. The hangar shook violently as the intruders regrouped. One threw a flash device. Alina shielded her eyes. A detonation white light. Silence, then hands grabbed her. Rough, tactical gloves. She tried to fight, but someone pressed a cold barrel to her temple. A voice whispered behind her mask, "You found Echo 1. That means you don't leave this hangar alive." The Apache screamed an alarm so loud it rattled the steel beams. And then, the module in Elena's hand began blinking faster. A countdown, a data transfer, or a trigger. She didn't know. She only knew one thing. Whatever was inside Echo. Rowan died trying to expose it. The world flashed back into focus as the white blast faded. Alina Bayer's ears rang like artillery fire. The intruders moved as silhouettes, cold, precise, silent. One held her by the shoulder, forcing her to her knees beside the Apache's landing gear. Rourke fired from behind a fuel drum, bullets sparking off the concrete. "Drop the module." "No," she shouted, because the blinking black device wasn't just data. It was a map, a breadcrumb Rowan had died trying to deliver. The intruder pressed a pistol harder against her temple. "You don't understand what you're opening." She smirked, despite the pain. "You think I care?" A second intruder stepped forward, voice calm. "Site Echo 1 is not a place. It's a trigger point, a control nexus, and anyone who knows it exists becomes a loose end." Alina laughed, the bitter kind reserved for veterans who had already buried their own ghosts. "Then you made one hell of a mistake waking this Apache up." Microhook, because the Apache wasn't powerless. It was angry. The aircraft's defensive diagnostics spun to life again, blinking patterns slicing across the cockpit glass. Alina recognized them as encrypted instructions. Alina, Rourke warned, "Don't trust the machine." "It's not the machine," she murmured. "It's Rowan." She twisted just enough to slam her elbow backward, cracking it into the intruder's ribs. He stumbled. She rolled away, gripping the black module. Suppressed gunfire burst across the hangar. Rourke laid covering fire, but the intruders were already advancing. "Alina, move." She sprinted toward the maintenance terminal, module in hand. The Apache lit up, rotor blades twitching like a beast waking from sedation. Alina connected the module. The screen filled with red warnings. "Echo 1. Primary source of sabotage network location locked, requires authorized pilot signature, Alina." Rourke shouted. "They're flanking." "I'm working on it," she yelled over the rising hum. The aircraft suddenly projected a biometric. "Window verify pilot. Captain Rowan." Her blood ran cold. Rowan was dead. But the Apache didn't care about bureaucracy, cared about memory. And Alina understood exactly what it wanted. She placed her hand on the throttle. Something Rowan had done thousands of times during training missions. The Apache scanned pressure curves, micro-tremor signatures, and manual input behavior. For a second, nothing. Then, Rowan's signature accepted, access granted. The hangar lights exploded with blinding brilliance as the Apache broadcast the Echo 1 coordinates in a raw data burst. The intruders froze. Rourke whispered, "What did you do?" Alina swallowed hard. "I just opened the door." Rowan died, knocking on. Distant alarm siren wailed across the base. "Not theirs. Not military. Something external. Something watching." "Alina," Rourke said slowly. "Someone else just locked onto the broadcast." She checked the module. The new signal wasn't American, wasn't allied, wasn't local. It was foreign, encrypted, silent. The intruders began retreating. Instantly, mission abandoned. Their leader shouted, "Echo 1 is compromised." All units fall back. But Alina grabbed the Apache ladder, eyes burning with realization. They're not retreating, she said. They're regrouping. For what? Rourke asked. She stared at the Apache's final encrypted message. Echo 1 is coming to you. The base fell into full lockdown. Sirens ripped through the morning haze. Boots thundered across the tarmac. An armed squad sprinted toward Hangar 7. But the threat wasn't inside anymore, it was coming from the desert, crawling across the sand with silent precision. Alina and Rourke stood beside the Apache as new radar hits appeared on the hangar monitor. Unmarked vehicles. Multiple. Fast, Alina, Rourke muttered. This is a coordinated strike. No. Alina adjusted the headset. This is an extraction. They want the Apache or the evidence. The Apache's systems pulsed a warning. Echo 1, en route, impact unknown. Microhook. Echo 1 wasn't a place. It was a team. The first vehicle broke, the horizon a matte black armored carrier tearing across the sand. Behind it, 3 SUVs followed in perfect convoy. None had plates. All carried heavy roof-mounted equipment. Rourke cursed. We're not outfitted to repel this. Alina moved to the cockpit. We don't need to repel. We need to reveal. She initiated emergency bootstraps rotors, groaning, hydraulics, whining. The Apache trembled like a wounded predator, trying to rise. Alina, this bird is grounded, a mechanic shouted. Not tonight, she fired back. If experts couldn't fix the AH-64 Apache, then it needs someone who listens instead of tinkers. She hit the ignition. The rotors spun faster. The sabotage relay inside the frame pulsed violently, almost fighting her. But she pushed harder. Come on, Rowan, she whispered. Help me fly this one last time. The Apache surged to life. Rourke's jaw dropped. You got it, airborne. Alina didn't smile. Barely. The ground shook as the armored carrier smashed through the perimeter fence. Soldiers fired, but the vehicle plowed forward relentlessly. Behind it, Echo 1 operators dismounted, moving with lethal discipline. Alina, Rourke yelled. They're coming straight for the hangar. She lifted the Apache 3 meters off the ground. Just enough. The intruders stormed through the hangar doors and froze. They didn't expect the Apache to be active. Didn't expect Alina Bayer behind the collective. Didn't expect Rowan's ghost embedded in the machine. The lead operative raised a weapon. Alina triggered the Apache's spotlight, blinding them. Rourke fired warning shots. Fall back. But Echo 1 didn't retreat. They advanced. Their leader shouted, Take the pilot. Alina swung the nose toward them. Rotor wash blasting sand and debris like shrapnel. The intruder staggered. Alina, Rourke yelled, take off now. But the Apache suddenly presented a map overlay displaying, not the desert, but something underground, a facility, a tunnel, a network. Rohan had hidden more than just coordinates. He had hidden the truth. Alina, what is that? Rourke asked. A map, she said breathlessly. The real the origin point. Another alarm screamed. One of the armored vehicles deployed a missile pod. Alina there, preparing to fire. She pulled the cyclic. The Apache lurched upward just as a missile streaked toward the hangar.